Good morning, dear Aldres parents. So it's good to see all of you this morning as we discuss behavior management basics. So this is a parenting webinar to support each one of you in moving on with online learning. So I congratulate each and every one of you for holding on to this really difficult period of being a parent. It's not really easy um, to be a parent at this time. Okay, and it's good that you're still here, hanging on, and Aldres is committed to supporting you through and through. So this is the reality of distance learning. For us working parents, I'm sure at many points in your life, you've dreamed of working from home in case you weren't working from home pre-pandemic. So be careful what you wish for now that you are working from home. And it's not just been a month, it's been 11 months of working from home for the working parents out there. And for those who are not working, who are full-time homemakers, it's also uh, doubly, triply hard to have the kids 24/7 with you, especially if you have a child with special needs. We know how difficult it is to raise one. It takes a community to help a child with special needs, to raise a child with special needs. So even with the online learning platform, remote learning platform, we are here to help you. So this is the reality of it. You see here, moms trying to work while maybe attending to many other tasks. But then you have a dog barking, howling, you have a baby crying, you have siblings running around the house, you have the TV on. So not many of us are fortunate enough to have, a big house wherein you can really have a delegated space for work, for maybe homeschool, for studying, or you have helpers to support you, to assist you, whom you can ask for help, okay, when you want the kids to just stay in their rooms while you're working. For many of us, the reality is this, that we really just have to be very, very creative in trying to find that space and that time that will work for us. This is a funny meme that was sent to me. Teacher, kunin niyo na ako sa bayan, tapang magturo ni nanay. So, naintindihan po namin kayo. It's very difficult, being a parent is this role that is now entrusted to you. No one was prepared for this, I guess, because even if you maybe are a teacher by profession, but to actually be teaching your kids, that's a different thing. As a parent teacher like myself, we have expectations of our kids, so it's still different if another teacher teaches our child. And it is a unique situation with parents of children with special needs because it requires a lot more skill and specialization to be able to address their complex needs. So our goal for this morning would just be threefold: to be familiar with the building blocks for positive discipline in the time of COVID-19. So positive discipline is actually a parenting strategy framework, okay, used by one of the organizations I work with, Save the Children Philippines, and it's used by other sectors as well. It's a rights-based framework that actually has a lot of emphasis on respecting the child, but we will see which aspects of this framework can be applied to kids with special needs, because realistically, not all of the ways by which we can apply positive discipline is applicable to kids with developmental conditions, because in some of the strategies, they would be asked to explain their behavior, to understand their behavior as they come. But we know for a fact that with kids with more complex needs, this can be a challenging task, if not impossible for some. to analyze possible causes of difficult behavior in children, particularly during distance learning. So to be able to target the behavior, you have to understand where that behavior is coming from, why is the child behaving that way, then only then will you be able to come up with a solution. So it requires a problem-solving approach. We hope that with this discussion, somehow you'd be given a different perspective in looking at behavior. We don't expect it to be behaviorists after this, or even us. The study of behavior is very, very complex. But what we want you to do is to be able to somehow pause when you see a difficult behavior and try to figure out where that behavior is coming from. Then maybe the intervention or the solution will be more targeted. And you will not lose your calm that easily because you're trying to shift it now to a more rational process. Of course, it's very difficult for parents to do, considering there are many other things we need to do in the house, but it will help if we pause, analyze the behavior, then figure out what to do. Okay, so para lang yung stoplight. Okay, pause muna, step back, figure it out, then go. To learn practical tips to help manage the behavior of your child at home. So I came up with 10 practical tips, very easy to follow. But all of these tips, although they may seem very practical or very simple, are all anchored on evidence-based strategies for managing behavior of children with diverse needs. We recognize that each child is different. Each child is unique and every family is different. So what works for one family may not work for another family. Especially when you're talking about kids with special needs. They are so diverse because even in just one disability group or category, which is autism, it's a spectrum of disorders. So no two children are alike, even if they're actually twins. So here, stay calm no matter what. Remember, see the need behind the behavior. What is the child trying to communicate with that behavior? Remember, every behavior has a purpose and the child is communicating something with that behavior. What is he trying to say? Is he angry? Does he want something? You have to figure it out. Try to find a way. Meet the need, find a way. But what's the proper way of meeting that need to be able to reinforce good behaviors and at the same time extinguish or decrease the negative ones? Remember, don't quit. And as parents, we know this. We have struggled with this many times. If not you, then who? It's why acceptance is really integral to managing behavior. We just have to accept where we are and just do something about it. We just cannot quit because the question now is then who? So here are the building blocks of positive discipline. So I'm just showing you the framework and then I just picked out what is applicable because there are some ways of managing behavior. If you attend other parenting seminars, some of those strategies actually apply to all children regardless of profile. But then there are some which may not apply in terms of handling or parenting them, but for the area of positive discipline, I just picked out those that particularly apply to kids with special needs. So start with your long-term goals. Always keep this in mind. Where do you want to go as a parent? Okay. What do you want your child to achieve? Is it independence? Remember, if you have a goal, then you have to work towards that goal. Your goal should be consistent with the steps or the actions that you decide on day to day. If your goal is independence, then you'd have to start letting go and allowing the child to struggle a bit to be able to do things for himself. You cannot say your goal is independent, but then you still feed your child without letting him hold the spoon in the fork, even if he is able to. Or you ask the yaya to do it for him. Let's say your goal is independence in dressing, but still you don't patiently wait for him to dress up by himself because it may take a lot of time for you to do so. But then remember, always go back to your long-term goal. What's your long-term goal? And then little by little, you might slip once in a while, but try to get back on track and move towards that goal. If your goal is self-regulation, then Actually, this is a difficult goal because to be able to demand this of our children requires that we demand it of ourselves as well. Kung gusto natin, regulated siya, meaning hindi siya basta-bastang nagbo-burst out into anger fits, then we have to be able to control our emotions as well. If the goal is adaptation, so we can't just keep him isolated, socially isolated. So even online, di ba sabi nga nila, social distancing, not social isolation. So you have to let him adapt. It is difficult. It is frustrating. Sometimes parents just give up. Ayoko na teacher, iiyak lang siya. Ayaw naman niya. But little by little, baby steps would be fine. As long as you are working towards your identified long-term goals. The value of routines, providing warmth, providing structure. Kids thrive on structure. All children thrive on structure, but most especially for kids with special needs. So it's important that we provide this. Later on, we'll discuss this even more. And of course, in the context of a warm and loving home. Understand how children think and feel. Again, it's not very easy for kids with special needs. Some of them have limited ways to communicate. So we keep on guessing. Ano pang gusto niya? Bakit pa siya iyak ng iyak? Okay? Bakit pa siya nagwawala? Okay? Respect their pace. That's one. Sometimes you have expectations na, teacher, ang pinaka-goal ko kasi sa kanya, pareho siya nung kapatid niya. Dapat ganito na yung nalalaman niya. Yung mga pinsan niya nandito na. Remember, our kids have their own pace of learning and development. We have to respect that. We just have to provide the environment in which they will thrive and grow. But you have to respect their pace, appreciate their uniqueness. Again, when they say, I want my child to be normal, why do you want your child to be normal? Your child is unique, your child is special, and appreciate that. Hindi siya yun kung wala siya niyan. Diba? Yun ang narinig ko yan sa magulang din. Hindi siya, pag tinanggal mo lahat, let's say for a child, I heard this from a parent of a child with autism. Teacher, pag tinanggal mo kasi lahat ng quirks niya, yung rigidity niya, yung temper niya, hindi na siya yun eh. Because that's what makes him him. Then try to creatively communicate. Again, communication. SPED teachers, parents of kids with special needs are usually a lot more sensitive because they're able to see through nonverbal language or read through nonverbal language because you have to be able to creatively communicate in the absence of expressive language, and you problem solve. Later, I'll give you some examples for that. So we know for a fact that we're still in a pandemic and it's really difficult to cope with this pandemic. We parents are having a very difficult time, but remember that your children are having a difficult time as well. All the routines were cut, were disrupted. They're not able to leave the house. They're just in a confined space. For some, it has worked for them. For others, it has been more challenging for them. Okay. Reactions, okay, in preschool, these are the usual reactions that we have, okay. Some of them would have temper tantrums, whining, or clinging behavior. So how to help? So it's just some practical ways to help. Make sure that you stick to your regular family routines. Routines help because children are able to anticipate what's going to happen. And usually the cause of a tantrum is when they're caught off guard. They don't know that this is going to happen, then all of a sudden they're shoved into that task. Calming, providing calming, comfortable activities, and avoid media exposure only until necessary. So now it forces us to use gadgets, even it's not ideal, but because of online learning. But after that, try to avoid media exposure as much as possible, especially with all the negative news going around. For lower school and middle school kids, irritability, whining, aggressive behaviors, withdrawal from peers, loss of interest, like they don't want to socialize anymore. Sometimes it's a competition for parents' attention with the other kids around. So it always helps to have regular exercise. Remember that with exercise, you release happy hormones. Okay, and these happy hormones help you get through your day as an adult and also as a child. Engage in educational activities. Keeping them busy is one way to avoid disruptive behaviors. But then their busyness should be anchored also on what's appropriate for them and also what their interest is. Assign household chores, set gentle but firm limits, and limit media exposure as well. For the transition years for adolescents, reactions, agitation, or decrease in energy, isolation from family and peers, avoiding school. So it's important to stay connected. So actually being enrolled is one way. They're forced to really meet online because we have synchronous classes twice or thrice a week for the transition years. Participation in family routines, including chores, but again, limit media exposure. If they can understand, try to discuss with them what they have seen or heard. Remember that not all difficult behaviors is caused by what we did and did not do as parents. Okay, these are some things that we have to ask. Is a child feeling well? Because if he's not feeling well, he's sick, but he cannot express it because he also has limited communication skills, then it's possible that it will be manifested as a disruptive or a difficult behavior. Is a child hungry or sleepy? Does your child have sensory regulation issues? He gets overwhelmed, sometimes with online learning, too many things to see on the screen. That's why you see that we have very small classes. Okay, does your child have limited communication skills? So how do we analyze behavior, the problem-solving approach? I'll just give you one example in the interest of time, but just to give you a perspective of analysis that you can use when you're trying to figure out your child's behavior. Just always remember all behavior has a purpose. Remember the iceberg theory? Like when you see an iceberg, kaya nga di ba they say that's just the tip of the iceberg because underneath the iceberg is really a very big block of ice. So same thing with behavior. When the child is behaving in a very challenging way, there is a purpose to that. And to understand that really requires a lot of thinking and planning. So what is the behavior? Remember that all behaviors, or most behaviors, not all, most behaviors, because I told you a while ago that some may not be caused by what they actually, what you actually did or did not do. But some behavior, when you find the behavior, you try to analyze the antecedents, what happened before, and what happened before the behavior was manifested, and what happened after the child manifested that behavior, because that will now give you an idea of whether the behavior would persist or there's actually a way by which you can prevent the behavior from occurring by managing the antecedents, or being very conscious about the consequences, because that actually determines whether the child will understand the behavior as something that should be kept, should be used, or not. Sample case in context, hitting. So these are actual behaviors, problem behaviors that I consulted the teachers on. Okay, what are some of the behaviors that you see online? So let's say the child hitting, the caregiver or the parent. We look at the antecedents. What are some of the antecedents? The gadget was taken away, meaning right before class, the child was playing with the gadget. So when it is taken away, then the child hits. The sound was too loud. Maybe the settings on your computer or the teacher's sounds in the lesson for the day was too loud and the child reacted. Okay, sudden change in routine or study area. Like let's say an example was the parents changed the study area because they bought a bigger TV, so that's supposed to be more conducive to projecting the lesson. But then because it was the first day of using that, then the child was upset. Then so we can look at how we can, when we're trying to come up with a solution, we can look at how we can manage the antecedents. And we can also look at how we can manage the consequences. Here are the consequences that actually may lead to the persistence of the behavior later on. Let's say because the child hit, the caregiver immediately gave back the gadget. Binalik niya yung gadget, parang hindi na umiyak, para tumigil na. Or because the child hit, the caregiver said, oh, tama na, ito candy. Kasi pag candy, kumakalma siya. Or because the child hit, then the caregiver pretended to hit back. Ikaw kaya ang anuhin ko. Okay, parang ikaw kaya paluin ko. Hindi yan maganda. Ganyan. Okay. Now, when we're trying to come up with a strategy for addressing that, we look at the antecedents. So one of the things that we can do is, of course, no gadget before class. We want to prevent that behavior from occurring. Ideally, before the class starts, hours before the class starts, take away the gadgets. because it will be difficult to take it away from him right before class starts. Modulate the volume of your gadget. And for the teachers, please give feedback if that is the case, so the teacher will be able to adjust. Prepare child if there be sudden changes in routine or study space. If let's say that is now the goal, maybe the night before you already try using that space. And then tell the child, this is where we're going to study tomorrow. When you look at the consequences, so this is instead of giving back the gadget, feeding with candy, pretending to eat, there are some other consequences that, let's say he is already hit, that you can do as a parent or a caregiver. Ignore, then direct to task. Okay, sometimes it helps to ignore. Because sometimes if it's attention seeking, then the best way to address that behavior is to ignore. Okay, especially if it's negative attention that they seek. Reprimand using firm guidance. Yes, there's such a thing. You can be kind when you are firm. Okay, so say, not good. No, that's not good. I think there's some parenting books that would say it's not good to say no. Well, it's not good to say no all the time. And remember, always when you say no, you have to present an alternative action or behavior. Hindi no lang, no, 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 no. That's bad. But you can actually say no. There's nothing wrong with saying no. Because it's the only way kids learn yes and no, black or white. And most of our kids are black or white until a certain age, when they can actually do some cognitive processing of their behaviors. Model appropriate behavior, encourage self-regulation and communication. Okay, so what's appropriate behavior? When you want something, you model to him. It can be tactile, okay, lead him hand over hand. When you want something, you tap me, okay, say help, please. Okay, so encourage him, or if he feels like, put your hands in your pocket if you feel like hitting, or you count 1 to 10, whatever works. Okay, so now let's go to the practical tips for parents of kids with special needs. Number 1, remember this, the child first, special needs second. Sometimes we forget this because we're so engrossed in our long-term goals, as what we have discussed earlier. Teacher, hinahabol ko kasi gusto ko makapunta siya sa regular school kaagad by the time grade 1 siya. So sometimes we bombard them with interventions. Well, that's good for us, diba? Because that's business for us. But remember that, but we will not encourage it, because we need the child, we look at the best interest of the child, and the best interest of the child would be to really allow him to also grow in his own time and way. Okay, of course, the other extreme is not giving any intervention, but just remember not to overdo things. Remember always, the child also loves to play in his own way. So respect the way he plays also, whatever toys he wants to play with. He's excited to be with friends, but he also needs adequate rest and space to grow. Sometimes the parent would say, teacher, I want him to be in school for, give him 4 individual sessions, one after the other. Napakahirap po nun, lalo na sa online. And we don't actually agree, okay, to that. Although, of course, it's, again, business for us, but no. We really tell them, hindi po pwede, masyadong mahirap dun sa bata. Hindi na siya matututo, sayang po yung pangalawang oras. We try to focus on his similarities with other children, but we also appreciate the uniqueness. As I said earlier, appreciate the uniqueness. We don't try not to aspire for him to be normal, because actually no child is. Every child is different. Okay. Tip number 2, you are the boss. You have to look at roles, because these matter. Okay. If you disrupt the role, let's say you make the child the boss, the child actually at 3-year-old dictates the actions of the family. That doesn't make sense. But it happens because parents are afraid of upsetting the child. But remember, it's okay to say no. Hindi puro yes, yes, yes. Kasi kung hindi makakaganda sa kanya, hindi makakabuti sa kanya, please say no. And remember, you are the authority figure in the house as the parent. And diba, in a household, in a 2-parent household, you have to agree. You are one unit. Otherwise, the child can use it against you. If let's say you are fighting in front of him, kung sino masusunod, yung isa kampi sa anak, yung isa hindi, that will not work. So who's the boss? Ask that. It's not your child. You are his boss until maybe he's bigger, and then he can decide from himself, he'll be his own boss. Okay. But At this time, don't let him control you. You are the authority figure. That is our role as a parent. Hindi tayo kaibigan. Tayo ay magulang ng bata. They love you no matter what. So sometimes parents just give in to children because says, baka magalit siya sa akin, baka hindi niya na ako love. Huwag po kayong mag-alala. Love niya kayo no matter what. Their love is unconditional. When I read this, I looked at it from the endpoint of the mother, the parent. Mother said, you can rest in my love when you have a tough day. You can rest in my love when you have joy to tell me. You can rest in my love to keep you safe. But you can also look at this from the child's perspective. The child is saying to his mama, to his papa, Mama, you can rest in my love when you have a tough day. You can rest in my love when you have joy to tell me. You can rest in my love to keep you safe. Be consistent. It's the only way. I quote this from one of our parents. I won't say her name, pero maraming salamat po. This is an affirmation for us. We are also having a very difficult time. I cannot deny it. Teachers are also having a very difficult time with this online learning. Sabi ni Mami, tinext niya, huwag kayo ma-pressure masyado, teachers. Okay lang kami. Na-appreciate namin yung pace na yan for him. But also on others, kami kasi nahirapan na rin po yung ibang parents. Sabi niya, hindi ka bang di nahirapan? Ayaw din ng anak ko mag-class pero pinipilit namin. Hindi naman po laging gusto, realistically, hindi naman nila gusto lagi mag-class. Parang tayo po, hindi naman natin gusto lagi mag-meeting. Ewan ko nga po kung gusto nyo nandito kayo ngayon at nag-attend kayo ng webinar na to. Pero, pinipilit natin kasi na makabuti. So remember, children thrive on consistency and predictability. They need their routines, they need their chores. That's why when we gave the parenting seminar and Teacher Dana told you, these are the roles of parents. First and foremost, ensuring attendance and establishing routine. That is primary. Okay, then you have the others. But we cannot help you if the child is not there. Diba? There will be instances when the child will be absent, but then as much as possible, try. And we appreciate, we commend you parents for trying their best. Remember, they usually see more than they listen. Most of our learners are visual learners, whether the child has Down syndrome, autism, intellectual disabilities, even learning disabilities. Something that you say to them does not register as quickly as something that they see. That's why you make use of visual schedules. Okay, you post that on the wall, reminders, you post that on the wall, signs and symbols. Okay. Warm up, set up, prepare. They need to be prepared. Sometimes they go into a meltdown or even a tantrum. Remember, meltdowns are different from tantrums. Meltdowns are usually caused by difficulty with wedding. They were overwhelmed by so much stimulation, then they go into a meltdown. Mahirap itigil yung meltdown kasi talaga na-overwhelm sila. Parang kumbaga na-over yung stimulation. Yung tantrum, parang ginagamit nila yung behavior na yun to get something that they want. Diba? But the best way to avoid that is to warm them up, set up, and prepare. So hindi pwedeng right before online class, nagmamadali, hindi pa nakaset up. So tayo din, natataranta, time na, nakalagin na si teacher. Ideally, kung 15 minutes yung warm-up time, 15 minutes, nakaupo na siya doon, okay, doing something, playing in that area, working on some. So they have to do that. They have to know what's going to happen. That's why you see every class usually starts with the schedule, so they know, diba? That's a visual schedule. Then the rules are there. Thumbs up if okay, high five, good job. Point to the screen, show to camera, mute when teacher is talking, unmute when teacher calls on you. And our kids know to mute and mute. Problema minsan minumute nila si teacher. Okay, they need to know what's going to happen and what do I do. Be organized, your learning space matters. This was shared to me by a parent. At the start, when her child was still adjusting to teletherapy, nahirapan siya kasi nga, parang hindi pa sanay yung bata. This is the new normal. Okay? So, I told her, Mami, try natin, lagay natin yung rules there. Tapos sabi niya, Teach, pwede bang makahingi ng logo ng ALRES? Sure. Sabi ko, gawin para ma-associate niya kasi na-associate niya pag ALRES class. So, yan. And it worked. Surprisingly, it worked. Area, look for an area with the least distractions. If, let's say, you're still in an area with a lot of distractions, try to, if it's possible, look for one that would have the least amount of distractions. Hindi ko sinabing no distractions kasi mahirap yun unless ang laki-laki ng bahay ninyo. Materials should be within reach, hindi yung tayo ka ng tayo because you're looking for materials. It's a technique for teachers. Teachers shouldn't be standing up all the time. Before their class starts, all their materials are within reach. All other gadgets are out of sight. Believe your child can. So this is the theory of scaffolding. Di ba? Yung tawag nila zone of proximal development sa education. Meaning, you work where the child is at. Di ba? Where is your child at now? Huwag mong bigyan ng masyadong mahirap because when it's too difficult, the child will show learned helplessness. He will not work anymore because it's too difficult. He will not even try. If it's too easy, he might not mind it because it's just too easy. He's undermotivated. So you do step by step. It's called task analysis. Di ba? So break it down and then you scaffold. Okay, going up or going down. Alam niyo yung scaffolding, di ba? Yun yung parang, may mataas, may ayos yung roof nyo. There's a scaffold to get to the top. So it's adjusted based on the height. So ganun yung scaffolding, step by step. This builds competency and empowering experiences. Remember to give your child and yourself a break. It's not wrong to take a break. You deserve it, your child deserves it. That is part of your routine. That should be part of your routine. Remember always as a parent, di ba yung oxygen rule na in the airplane, di ba? Pag nagka-emergency, na-adjust yung pressure sa plane, you don't put the mask immediately on your child. You put it first on you and then on the child after. Same thing with emergency responders like doctors, nurses, therapists who are emergency responders. When they respond to an emergency, sila muna ang titingnan nila, dapat okay muna ako bago ko matulungan yung iba. Kasi pag hindi ako okay, ako pa yung nahimatay, then you're not going you won't be of any use. So give your child and yourself a break. Yan. Stay at home. Ito na, sobra-sobra na nga tayo sa stay at home. Forgive yourself. If no one is perfect, so take a step back. So it would be good to sometimes just stop. Think of what you're doing. Is it helping? Is it not? Okay. Putting yourself first is all right every once in a while, di ba? As parents, although as parents parang tayo lagi yung kain ka muna, ako yung natira, ganyan. But then, it's okay to put yourself first. Minsan maging madamot din tayo. Ako muna, isa yung tira. Okay, roll a task, brain break. So if the child becomes uneasy during class, you can just, go around the house for a bit, do this, okay, a dice game, do some, yan. If you roll the dice 2, 15 sit-ups, do the dice 3, hop on one foot, so on and so forth. Last one. Remember this, that you were, and this is what I want to leave with you this morning, that you are especially chosen to be where you are. So just be grateful that you were chosen. So meaning it is a difficult task where you are in now, what you're doing as a parent. And some of us may still be struggling. Remember that it's cyclical, being able to accept that our child really has needs that need to be taken care of. But we know for a fact also that it has helped us become much better persons to be able to have them, okay, in our lives. So remember this, the most important work you will ever do will be within the walls of your own home. So be grateful for the time you're spending now. When things go back to normal, the vaccines are coming out soon. And maybe in a few months' time, in a year's time or so, things will return to a bit of what they used to be moving forward. But treasure this time that you have now, being the primary teacher of your child at home. Then we take over. Okay, so with that, good morning, everyone. Thank you for your patience and for listening.